Hi, I'm Luke Searveld. Welcome to another episode of Meet the Gaffer. I'm here with Alan Steinheimer. It's been a long time. It's good to see you again. It's like we don't see each other that often, so Alan said, hey, why don't you come on this job? Which was nice. And here we are at local stage to me in my town. It's fun to work close to home. And we're in a familiar green screen environment. But yeah, something different happened today.
Yeah, it's funny. You think of green screen as always being somewhat rote in a way, frequently the same thing over and over again. But there's been a little sea change in the last couple of years, which is basically we have LED space lights now. Tungsten hung on to the very end because it was so much cheaper. It was so expensive to have big LED lights. The 1200s didn't really come out until just a couple of years ago. We were sort of presented with a challenge. People are going to come in on this particular scene left and right. And so I thought, well, maybe a top center key would be the best thing. We could still go ahead and do edges left and right. And, as often happens, the space lights in the back provided enough little backlight as well just to rim them a little bit. Fairly simple setup. Just wasn't possible to do until LEDs were a lot brighter. We have two 1200 Nanlux dynos. We put up a 12 by 20 in the end, just it was convenience. Sometimes you put up soft goods that are a little bit bigger than you might actually need. It just contains all the spill. So, and what it really is about an 8 by 20 at this point. So, and it worked pretty well. I was dimmed down to about 50% on the two lights. And as we do on about half of our shoots, I used an iPad running Blackout. I haven't put the beta version, the Blackout 2 in quite yet. But, with the dynos up high, they would be difficult to access. And having remote control over color and dimming, it just makes things so much easier. It's one of those things you never know exactly how many foot candles you're going to need. The request came in to shoot at least a 5.6. I think we ended up at a 6.8 just for the movement factor.
So what's the history with these space lights?
Well, I actually used to own these space lights. And, I was on a little bit of the cutting edge in the Bay Area. I mean, they had been around in LA and stuff for quite a while. It just, I didn't have a stage. I didn't own a studio. And I was going on the supposition I'd have enough green screen shoots that they would come in handy. And then after a year and a half, I tossed in the towel. And so, we all know each other within the Bay Area. So I sold them to the stage knowing it would probably be a good fit here.
What did they replace?
The 2K, space lights, tungsten. So nobody misses those. They were hot. The bulbs always blew up. The sockets got burned out. You'd walk onto a stage and, literally a third of the bulbs might be out. You have to drive the scissor lift in. They might be burning hot still because you hadn't turned them off in time. I mean, just, really gaffer's least favorite light and a cheap rental. So it was like you couldn't make much money off them. It's so much easier to just come in, and there's now a dimmer over there. Literally just dim stuff up. These are bicolor from Sumo. They have a newer version now, but
And full color.
yeah, I can't imagine why you would need that right away. So it goes to that whole debate, color versus bicolor. When you have bicolor for LEDs, for me, that suffices about 90% of the time. And I still own some color lights here and there. Well, certainly the panel lights are pretty much all color, but I haven't bothered with the Fresnels just because the call hasn't been there for a lot of color on a lot of shoots. So,
But you do have a 900C.
I do, yeah. And actually, the two Fresnels are both 1200 Bs, the Nanlux Evoke. And at first, I resisted. It was actually the younger guys that sort of introduced me to the Fresnel. I was like, that's a big honking light. And really, like, I'm getting older. It's like carrying that honking light around. But I used it a couple times and was like, all right, same output as those silly, reflector shells. Maybe not the same as the super narrow one, but even, and like the Fresnels that I literally grew up on, with all the versatility of Fresnels and a fair amount of output and a nice spot flood. So,
And with doors, you could put diffusion on, even though we're usually putting it on frames, and it's cuttable.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something about a large Fresnel, like even as an edge, there's a certain quality to it that it's like I just grew up with that. It's got a certain sunlight feel to it. I'm not even sure I could scientifically analyze what it is. It's just got a good feel to it, And I usually go with a light diffusion, so we had opal today. If it's heavier than that, then you might as well have an open face or a panel light, at a certain point. So, and thus the panel lights here to get a little faster spread, a little quicker, and doubled up just because I knew people were going to walk in left and right, and it just seemed like the thing to do. Again, you build in a little bit of extra in case. Like I could have said, well, let's go with one light, and then we get partway into it and we see the two people walking in. There's a little too much fall off, and you're scrambling at that point. So
then one last thing, just the way we sort of set things up, we made it so that we could roll it out if we had to or change it up, which we did at one point. We sort of became more sidey with the whole thing because of glasses. But these stands, originally they were called Masturvators, but I think now they're sort of the new Minivator 2. You can get them with the small wheels or the big wheels, but I do like these stands, and I bought them from a gaffer who was retiring, and they had to be redone a little bit, but I just like the beef of them, even though they don't necessarily have, Roadrunner strength. And then you brought two steel.
all the key grips in town hate me for the steel that I bring to the sets. It just makes sense. I don't have to build a ladder truss or, box truss or whatever. So, and there's another variation of these stands because all the LEDs basically downsize the whole sort of inventory. Matthews came up with panel stands, which is a slightly lighter version of the narrower footprint, and I use that stand almost every shoot.
It is nice. You can sort of tuck the legs under things more easily. I do like the stance of the Minivator 2s, but we're getting off topic. Hey, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Another little innovation. Here we are, two gaffers sort of in our twilight years of work, and Alan said, hey, why don't you bring your grip truck, and then I'll bring a 1200C and a 1200B, and you do the same, and maybe some extra lights in case we need them, and we'll just kind of split it. And so we did.